Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 71, the week of January 11th, 2024. 2025. I didn't say 2024. I definitely haven't written that on every official document I've done for like the last week. My name's Drew Koenig. With me as always is my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how are we doing?
I'm tired. It's been a long week.
It has. Snowmageddon hit Ohio and most of the East Coast this week, which was so much fun.
My mom got quite a bit of snow in the Midwest too, so we didn't get quite as much as some places on the East Coast. There's winter weather here and fires on the other side.
Yeah, fires in LA, snow here. It's not great. It's not a good weather week.
Mm-mm.
No, we got, I think it said we had about 8.5 inches of snow earlier in the week, which is just too much snow. I think objectively too much snow.
Yeah, 8.5 inches is like almost a foot. That's insane.
Yeah, it snowed on Sunday, Monday, and then it snowed again yesterday, adding another like 2 or 3 inches. So it's just absurd. Yesterday wasn't too bad. I think it was too warm to really do anything. Yeah, I'm tired of snow already. I'm just done with this. It's the first snow of the winter, and I'm done.
You're like, nope, I don't want it this year.
No. Here's the problem. I live in a part of Cincinnati that begins in a mount,
Mm-hmm.
which means coming up. I go down for work and then I come up for work, and let's just say the down went a lot easier than the up.
Oh yeah.
The up wasn't happening. The up just simply was not about wasn't about it. So Matt's last week we decided on our New Year's resolution. How's that starting off for you?
I have not started yet.
You've not started yet.
But
Classic.
I put the leftovers on my list on Max so that I would be assaulted with it every time I go onto that app. And it reminds me, hey, this is on your list. You wanted to watch this. I have plans to start probably next weekend, maybe during the week this week, depending on how my life goes.
Yeah, so reminder for what I'm doing. I'm watching all of the IMDb top 250 shows.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started off with Avatar: The Last Airbender and Planet Earth.
Wait, have you never seen Avatar?
No, I've seen it before, but I'm kind of.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing it in earnest.
Oh, okay, got you.
As much in earnest as I think I'm capable of. Just seems like a good place to start. But
yeah,
everything else I'm putting into a randomizer.
Oh, that's smart. That's a good way to put it.
Whenever I'm done,
I'll
just click on something else. And I'm gonna tell you this: as I was going through all of the shows on this, I realized that like I didn't set out to be like, oh, I'm gonna watch these shows this year for resolution. But by the end of this, no matter how this goes, I'm gonna end up having watched a whole lot more nature documentaries, like BBC nature documentaries, because there's so many on the top 250, and a lot of anime.
Those are so easy to watch, though, too.
They're so easy to watch. It's just such a breeze. Like watching Planet Earth.
Put it on the background.
Yeah, no. Watching Planet Earth is so fucking easy. And it deserves to be on the top 250 because it's some of the best television. I think it's some of the best like filmmaking that's ever been ever been captured.
Mm-hmm.
The great white shark versus the seal sequence is some of the best things that's ever been done.
Yeah,
it's just tremendous. Also reminds, furthers my belief. Hey, stay out of the ocean because there's just things like that waiting for you.
It's the circle of life, Drew.
Indeed.
Predators and prey.
Exactly. But also, I'm gonna end up having watched a lot of anime too.
Yeah.
Because there's so much on there, and there were some things I had to just be like, I'm not gonna. I can't even put this on here because there's no way I will. Like Dragon Ball and certain like really long running anime. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to watch a combined like 800 episodes. It's just not gonna happen. There's no universe in which that is a reality. And realistically, I know I'm not gonna watch a quarter of this list. That's not how time works.
Right. And I my thing with anime is that I'm very particular about what type of anime I
Mhm.
watch. It's either has to be dark-ish, like Death Note, or oh, what's the other one that I've watched? Something about vampires. But anyway, or it's got to be queer, like
Right.
unapologetically queer. Like I watched Yuri on Ice like 2 years ago finally, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is one of the best things I've ever seen." But like, and my sister tried to get me to watch Spy X Family this past year, and I tried. I really tried. I got through one episode and the little girl's voice drive me insane, and she's a main character, and it's like, "Nope, can't do it."
I think that is one of the ones on my list. I think Hunter x Hunter, Full Metal
I've heard Hunter is good.
yeah, Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood, I think is on there.
Oh yeah, I've seen Full Metal Alchemist.
Uh,
That was one that I watched in
Death
high school.
Note,
I loved it.
and these are just huge, massive blind spots. Just
Mhm.
I have no engagement with this whatsoever, so it's all just like, sure, I guess I can watch that. I guess this is as good of an excuse to watch this as anything.
Any of the anime I watched in high school was because I was trying to be friends with a certain group of people because I was lonely and sad. And so I'd watch anime and be like, "Yeah, I'm cool like you. I watch anime too." And it's like, "No, it's not the same level."
Right, right.
But I did end up really liking Full Metal Alchemist, and I was like, "Oh, this is good."
Going through some of those animes, I realized how much I don't understand any of this. Because Full Metal Alchemist being like, okay, it says Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's just Full Metal Alchemist. This is a remake. I don't understand. Okay, so we're just gonna watch this.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch this and hope for the best. Uh,
Mhm.
but I kind of had the same. I had the same quandary with not anime but like Blackadder, where it's like, oh, there's been like 50 Blackadders. So I guess
Pick
that's
one.
yeah, I guess that's not a thing because like the one on the list was like, or high up on the list was like, Blackadder goes forth, I think, and it's way in the series of Blackadder.
Right.
It's way in like the chronology of Blackadder. I was like, okay, so that's just not gonna happen.
Right, if it's a show that shows up on a list and it's, like, the sequel or, like, the 3rd one in a series of shows, I'm like, "Nope,
No, that's just
it's not happening."
it's just not happening. I'm sorry.
I go through that so, for the last few years, I've tried to do a spotlight on a specific actor, and, like, I watch their movies throughout the year. I haven't decided yet if I'm doing that this year, considering we're almost 2 weeks in, probably not gonna happen, but
Mhm.
because I'm like, I have so much going on this year. But, like, I did Robin Williams last year, and someone was like, "Oh, well, that's a lot of Mork and Mindy," and I go, "Oh, no, I only do their movies. I don't dive into television shows if they've been on television shows because that's way too much.
Yeah, it's too much. That's too much stuff.
It's enough to do the movies." Like, people that are prolific, like Tom Hanks and Robin Williams and like those character actors that have been in like 100 million films. It's like that's enough of an undertaking. I don't need to add television.
Right.
Like, no, no. This
No,
is
no.
a movie challenge. This is not a movie and TV challenge.
No, I think I calculated it to get through like all 250 shows by the end of the year. I would have to watch like 20 shows per month, and I was just like, okay, so that's just super not gonna happen.
You would have to be doing it as your job. Like this would have to be your job for you to accomplish that.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not gonna get through the top 100, but I'm up to a good start. So I do feel pretty good. I think I'll make pretty good headway.
I haven't made headway on my TV resolutions, but I am on my second book for the year and I'm proud of myself. I'm off to a good start.
That's good. See what I think I have to do is just watch all of the nature documentaries, and it'll be like, I watched 20 of these. Look how good I did. We will continue to check on this periodically throughout the year. Hopefully more studiously than we did last year.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I didn't do too bad last year, but
No, but I do feel like we forgot about it for large chunks of the year.
oh yeah, we definitely did.
Let's move on into some news. The most natural place for us to start is the massive wildfires that are blazing through Los Angeles and Hollywood currently, and California at large, which has been
Yeah.
met with massive devastation and destruction. resulting
Like,
in a lot of
I,
lost homes and very historic buildings and landmarks, particularly ones that have been featured heavily in television and film for a long
yep,
time. Particularly, and I know this is the one that you're doubtlessly about to bring up, the high school that was used to film Teen Wolf and Carrie and a bunch of other,
it was used for Buffy as well.
And Buffy, yes,
Yep, yep.
and
Palisades Charter High School.
yes, a very prolific high school in terms of television and film.
It's just hard for me to really comprehend, like, that these things are just not there anymore. Like, I've been seeing videos across social media and the news of just, like, the seaside where they're, because I went to LA not even 2 years ago. And it was my first time ever being there. And I just remember driving the 405 and like seeing all these houses along the shore and like all this stuff. And it was just like, those are all gone. It's insane.
Yeah, it is a massive blow to a lot of things. I know that there have been certain libraries in Los Angeles that have been hit really hard that just have rare books that are
Hmm.
irreplaceable, simply irreplaceable, and are just gone. A lot of repositories that are just
Yeah. And there was it the Getty Villa Museum, whatever, that had a lot of ancient artifacts that
mhm.
are just gone.
Which is not even to mention all of the people in Hollywood that just do not
Hmm.
have a home anymore. Many of them working class people.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've seen a lot over the last few days is that people have this very weird misconception that everyone that lives in LA is a celebrity, and that is just not possible, nor is it true.
Yeah,
Yes, most of the homes in Pacific Palisades belong to celebrities, but my stance has been on this that yes, they do have a lot of some of them do have a lot of money and they could rebuild, but it's still a home. It still has memories. It still has, sentimentality to it. Like that's still a devastating loss no matter who you are.
right. Well,
So,
and even the report today that Mandy Moore lost her home
mhm.
in the fire. People are talking about that like, well, Mandy Moore's rich and she can just build another home. Mandy Moore's money was tied up in her house. Like a lot of these
Right.
people's money is
Mhm.
tied up in their home.
They are asset rich, not cash rich.
Yeah,
And so that's what people I don't think seem to realize. The one that's really been devastating for me to read was Billy Crystal. He'd lived in his home for almost 50 years
mhm.
and it's just gone. And like I can't imagine you raise your family in that home, lived your married life in that home. Like that's got to be devastating.
And then in kind of more practical terms, a lot of shows that are filming in LA right now are on hold or on pause
Mhm.
till that situation clears up and filming becomes a bit more viable. So a lot of the shows would be filming right now or not, and we'll probably see
Mhm.
a bit of a hiatus for certain series.
Yeah, because even if like the filming studios are not in red zones, the air quality is still horrendously bad. And just a lot of people don't live where they work. So a lot of people had to evacuate.
On to lighter news. NBC announced, or Peacock, I suppose, announced that a reboot of Grimm is on the way.
Yep.
That will reportedly come in the form of a movie of some kind. To which I ask, who was the person that wanted this? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying here. I watched the entirety of Grimm. Grimm is a show that I like. I don't need to ever see Grimm again. I don't need more of that show.
Yeah.
Just, I can't imagine who was like, this is what we need. Are you all trying to get Bitsy Tulloch back? I like what's the motivation here?
Yeah. What is it? Because I loved the show too. But I felt like it ended good and there was no need to do anything else.
I just don't know what the the motivating factor of this is. Yeah, no, I was talking with friend of the show Ariel on Blue Sky about this, and we're like, cool. So we get this. I still have no news about Warrior Nun. Got it.
Yeah. We're gonna bring back this show that doesn't need to be brought back, but Warrior Nun.
I get nothing. Dust.
I'm just like, we'll classify that under things we don't need.
Also, potentially under things we don't need. Disney announced that they are doing a Holes TV show
With a twist.
with a twist. The twist being that it will be gender swapped. Now, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me because I can see that intro sounding like a dumb YouTube bro.
This is not us saying gender swaps aren't welcome, because they are.
They are.
We
They're
we we
100% welcome.
typically like we typically like a gender swap, especially if it's an all male cast. We're like, yes, bring in the females.
Yeah.
But when it's a show about kids that have been sent to a work camp because of something they did in the legal system, girls just doesn't have the same impact as boys does.
No, no, yeah, it has an entirely different vibe. I can imagine something similar to, to put this in kind of different terms. You had Lord of the Flies, and then you had, you know, the Wild come along and Yellow Jackets. Same vibe, same story kind of. What if
Mhm.
all the characters were female? That makes sense. That I can vibe with. And if something similar, like you're missing a lot of pieces there, though.
Because so much of what Holes is wrapped up in the male gender of it all. You can't really make this story better by changing it to girls. Just go watch the old movie. Just
Yeah, I think there's something inherently exploitative about the idea of making girls dig holes in the desert,
mhm.
and you just can't get around in a way that just doesn't come up with like boys.
But also I feel like that's not even a logical thing that happens in the United States. Boys do get sent to work camps or similar type
Right?
living facilities where they are manual labor is there to help them see the error of their ways. Girls don't get sent to those.
No, yeah. So it doesn't make a super lot of sense.
All right, Disney, whatever. To be honest, I've kind of like lost my luster for Disney in the last few years. So
Yeah.
this doesn't really surprise me as much as I feel like it would have if it had happened like 2 years ago.
Speaking of Disney, it was also announced that in preparation for Ahsoka season 2, that
Hmm.
Rory McCann of Game of Thrones fame would be replacing Ray Stevenson, who notably passed away before the first season came out, in between filming and the release of that season. And boy, I don't know. Like
I'm
that
not
was
sure how I feel about it.
yeah, like that was the problem. Okay, like when we talked about the first season, that was kind of the problem we had of like, okay, cool. You had this cool character that you left off in a place. What do you do with that character now that Ray Stevenson is no longer alive?
Hmm.
I thought the most natural thing was Poochie died on the way back to his home planet. Like honestly, like he did something,
Hmm.
he, went somewhere else and it's all on shit or whatever. But this, like, rep- there's something deeply ghoulish about it, and I don't. If I were, Disney and Lucasfilm, I don't know that I'd be able to like get around that either. Of like, okay, well, we still
Hmm.
have a plan and we can't get around the plan, so we need to do this. But it doesn't feel good, and that's always like the problem. Like, there's never. I feel like we come up against this kind of thing a lot. Where like, an actor died and we need to figure out what to do with the character they played. And there's never a good answer. There's just never a good answer. We're never going to come up with a good answer, I don't think. Because either way kind of sucks. Like, if you pretend the character didn't exist, that's not great. If you kill the character off, probably the best course of action, but still not great. And then if you just recast, that is, as I said, extremely ghoulish. So I do not know what I would do if I was Disney or Lucasfilm. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not sure how I feel about it. Marvel went through this obviously when what's his name died and they had to like figure out what to do with Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman. Wow, I had a horrible moment where I was like, "What is his name?" When Chadwick Boseman died, they're like, "Okay, well, what do we do to respect his memory, but also like allow this story to continue?" And they did a decent job of passing the torch to his character's younger sister. Okay, that made sense. It's still within the family, blah blah whatever. This storyline, you are better off just killing off the character, unfortunately, or whatever, because like it's not going to have the same vibe with a different actor.
Yeah, yeah, and especially when you still have Shin there, right?
Hmm.
So like anything that he was doing, I feel like you could kind of just transpose that onto her.
Yeah, you could have passed the torch to her instead of trying to recast him, but
Yeah,
we are not allowed to make those
we
decisions.
are not. Also, Rory McCann and Ray Stevenson just have different vibes.
They do. They do. Like, I could see why they picked Rory McCann. He's a decent actor, but like it's not the same energy. Um
Ray Stevenson just had that like joie de vivre, you know, like that kind of smoothness.
mhm.
Rory McCann just is the hound, you know, like not even just in in a typecasting kind of way, like just in that kind of like gravelly. "Urgh."
He's very gruff
Yeah,
and edgy, and I feel like Ray Stevenson is not that on the same level. Like yes, he is his own version of edgy, but like not in the darker, scarier sort of way that I feel like Roy McCann has.
yeah, no, like Ray Stevenson had that like he was intimidating and kind of scary, but there was like
Mhm.
that smoothness to him.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
he had that smoothness of like a James Bond villain. You know,
Right.
not in
Yeah.
like the mustache twirly kind of way, but of like the British.
Of the wow, you're a very smart villain. I respect you for your game.
Yeah,
Like
in
that
the
level of smoothness
yeah
because that
the
is
kind of like
truly how I felt about Balin.
yeah the kind of like the graceful kind of here. Let me tell you what I think about things that I don't think Rory McCann has.
He just does not give off that same energy. I literally like look at him and I'm like, I don't give a crap what you're about to say to me.
Yeah, so we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, for being honest, we probably won't like this next season of Ahsoka any better than the first one. But
Yeah, like we started off liking it and then kind of like a lot of the Disney Star Wars, it kind of tapered off towards the end.
yeah, give Shin cool things to do, and then we'll have a conversation.
Exactly. And give us the ship that we really want.
Yes, that is 100% serious and not at all a clown town circus.
And by we, I mean the ship that Drew wants.
That's true. We've no good this week because we are still catching up, and we're at the end of the match. So more goat another time. Without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show. So to kick us off this week, we're not talking about Dimension 20. Sorry specifically to friend of the show, Robin Jeffrey, who I know this is the only part of the show she listens to.
Sorry, I was lazy and didn't watch this week.
Deepest apologies. It's okay. I mean,
Not really. I just
I
had a very crazy week with Karen having surgery and work being insane.
yeah,
So
it's the end of the season. It's okay.
don't lie, you're secretly plotting my demise. It's fine.
That's true. But in lieu of that, we are going to kick off our week in TV in earnest with season one, episode one. If at first you don't succeed, and this is a new medical drama on Fox, and
Hmm.
I did a recap and review for this at Hidden Remote. You can go read that there. And my thoughts about this basically boil down to it's solid and it's buoyed really well with a really good central performance.
Hmm.
But Mads, what did you think about this?
Honestly, it's okay. It didn't really catch my attention in the same level as some of the other things that we watched this week. I enjoyed myself. I found the plot idea of her having lost 8 years of her life and having to try and figure things out for herself was interesting. I just am not quite sure the execution for a first episode was intriguing enough for me to be like, yes, this was a fantastic show. It was, like you said, it was solid. If someone else had been playing her, I don't know how solid it would have been.
Yeah, I think she does like a really good job of capturing. There's a certain unlikability of her that I think you have to nail just right. Like you have to make her that certain amount of unlikable without making her unbearable.
Mhm.
And I think she straddles that. Like she goes just up to the line, and I think that's a really nice show of restraint. I think Molly Parker is really good at this. So like part of that is like she is carrying this for a large extent, but I also enjoyed the way that there's certain character dynamics that the show just goes, here's a character, we're not going to tell you exactly what the deal is between certain characters, you know, and then it will make that reveal and it'll like contextualize that in a fun way.
Yeah, and I found a similar thing happens in The Pit, which we'll talk about in a little while, but, it does a good job of dropping us right into the drama without context to what happened in the past and what the history is between her and all these people that she works with and now has to try and remember who they are and like her working relationship with them because such a big chunk of that is missing from her memory.
Well, because I think the first act of this episode, there is like a missing man, in like her life that we're not like kind of like silhouetted in shadow of like there's someone here. There's a dad. There was a husband here, and we're not exactly going to show you
Mhm.
exactly who that was at the beginning. And I think the show lets you believe initially that it's Jake because there is something going on between them, and then like you know, it like very nonchalantly introduces us to Michael, who's just like the kind of stern but kind of gentle, supervisor,
Yep.
administrator, director kind of character, and you're like, oh, this is like kind of the heel, this is the kind of Cuddy to House,
Right.
and then that reveal of like, no, this was her ex-husband.
Right. And so then like once that's revealed, like the underlying tension that's between them when we first are introduced to him, it's like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. This is why they didn't want to show her family to her right away because there is some major issues going on in this family
Yeah, and then like just
that she
the
remembers none of, which is equally heartbreaking because we come to find out that, she's lost her son and she doesn't remember that he's died. And like that's heartbreaking in its own way. And you can see the pain on her ex-husband's face when he realizes that she doesn't remember that. And you can tell that he wants to be there for her because he does still care about her on some level, but he also can't physically be there because he's just in so much pain by whatever's happened between them, which my guess at this point is the death had something to do with that. Her personality probably didn't help either. So,
Yeah, so I think a lot of that like characterization and kind of contextualization like makes a lot of this work on top of Parker's performance. Yeah, and again, I just kind of I appreciate the way the show, in its portrayal of Amy at the beginning of this episode doesn't like try to soften her in any way, like doesn't try to like rough out any edges.
mhm.
And I, like we'll talk about this later, but like Wolf from Brilliant Minds, a character that the show is terrified of making too much of an asshole at any
Yeah,
time.
and it doesn't quite work out in the right way because they're too terrified to let him be himself.
Yeah,
Um,
and here Doc is just like, no, Amy's an asshole, but she's a really good doctor.
yeah, it's very like you said, it's very similar to Cuddy versus House. Like, she's definitely rough on the edges. There is qualities of her that you're like, okay, I can see why people trust her with their lives, but I can also see why people don't like her.
Exactly, exactly. Well, then I think all of that's like really offset really nicely by Scott Wolf,
Yes.
who God,
I love a good Scott Wolf
he
performance.
was such a calming presence on Nancy Drew, and now here he just has the most intensely punchable face.
Yeah. He's such a good performer, and having him show up, I was just like, "Oh, good. We have another, like, solid actor on this show that I know I'm going to enjoy hating this character."
Yeah, just unambiguously an antagonist.
They're like the phone call that he has where, I'm guessing it was, like, his wife or something, and she's like, "The circumstances aren't great, but, like, you've earned this." And it's like,
Have you?
no, he
I'm not
didn't.
sure he has.
He did not earn it. She was in a car accident. What part of that is he earned this?
And he is 5 seconds away from being fired.
Right.
Yeah, he's just Scott Wolf does a really good job of being smarmy and slimy, but also in that way
Mhm.
of like you can see how other people would think he's charming
Right.
in a doctorly way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a very good perform, really good like dual performances all around.
I'll keep giving it a shot. We'll see.
Let's move on to our next show, The Pit, season 1, episode 1 and 2, 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. I think part of the reason why Doc isn't as good is because it had the misfortune of coming out in the same week as The Pit,
Yeah.
and it just can't compare because The Pit is on an entirely different stratosphere.
Absolutely. There's just a level of flow to the pit that is just more captivating and keeps you intensely involved from the start to finish.
Yeah,
And that's very much in the same vein as Michael Crichton's ER, and it's just John Wells is very good at doing intense dialogue with intense action going on at the same time.
yeah. I was mentioning that I was talking to you about this off the air, but like a part of like what made ER really good was like Crichton's insistence of like here's medical stuff and here's how much it fucking sucks. And, like it's a lot of like what's in his like some of his like nonfiction novels of like
Mhm.
patients and some of the others where it's like here's the medical stuff and it sucks and it's really
Yeah.
gnarly and it's really gross and here's just the warts of it and all and here's even more than that, here's the system
Yeah,
that
and the system is
fails
so
people,
broken that you can barely work within it.
the style, the substance, the flair of the pit is just fully on display. And it's just a pressure cooker. It's just bouncing from like one unimaginable nightmare to another, to another, to another. And I think the moment in the first episode where I was like, oh, this show's on another level of shit is the woman who was run over by a train and you just see her leg,
Mhm.
her foot, and all of its unimaginable gnarliness and just gore.
Well, and then like 10 minutes later, you've got one of the medical students banged his fingernail on one of the gurneys, and they had to prick it to release the blood, and it's like, "Oh no, we're not shying away from this. We're showing it." I will say one of the other things I think that the pit does really good is that yes, it's very very intense, but the writers have created this nice balance between it and the dark humor that goes on in a lot of jobs like this. I used to work for a daycare, and if you weren't making jokes about things, you were screaming and wanting to pull your hair out. So I get the point of making jokes. Like in the second episode, they're dealing with an individual that gets brought in, and they go to cut his clothes down so they can deal with whatever his emergency is. I forget what it was, and rats just fall out of his clothes, and they escape into the ED, and Noah Wiley's character literally is just like, okay, focus on the patient, like whatever. And then later on in the episode, the hospital administrator person, the pencil pusher, the one that's coming around saying, you need to do this, this, and this to stay within budget. You're not doing this, and it's clear that there's a lot of tension between this doctor and this hospital administrator. And she comes in and she goes, did I hear something about rats? And he goes, don't worry, I booked he goes, "Don't worry, I caught one of them and charged it for a full visit." And I was like, the level of humor, and this administrator obviously is not thinking it's funny. She's like, "Okay, not funny." She's like, "I need you to be serious about this." And he's like, "Okay, but what am I supposed to do about rats? Like, I don't have enough beds for all the people in my ED. What am I supposed to do about some rats running around? Like, priorities." And it's true. Like, that is the reality of hospitals. Like, there's not enough beds. There's a lot of budget cuts and a lot of like stress in terms of staying within the parameters of what they're allowed to do financially. And him making that joke, I literally turned to Karen and I go, because it's true. They're going to nickel and dime you for anything they can. So, of course, he's going to make a joke about charging a rat for being in the ED. And like I said with Doc, like again, we're dropped into the middle of the drama. Like this isn't this character's first day working here. It's clearly not, but it's obviously a day he normally doesn't work. And so there's tension around that, but then there's also some unspoken tension between him and one of the nurses. And you're like, what's going on? And you get little hints of it when she's like, no, don't talk to me about that. Or she's like, not everything's about you. So like clearly there's something going on between the two of them. And this show has said, you're going to have to wait to find out. It's going to naturally occur. You're going to have to just slowly wait for
Mhm.
that to come out.
No, it reminds me a lot of like, especially like early Law and Order, where it'd be like, here's 5 seconds of a character interaction, you figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. I was also commenting to Karen that the doctor, I think his name is Dr. Langdon. I don't know, the one with the eyebrows and the pretty eyes. I literally said to Karen, I go, he looks like a combination of three different actors, and
Mhm.
that's why I can't figure out why I think I know him. And we looked up his resume, and he's more of a behind the scenes kind of person, like he's a producer, director, or whatever, and
Right.
like he doesn't really have any acting credits besides this and like one other thing. And I was like, no, I definitely haven't seen him in anything, but like he kind of looks like Sebastian Stan, but also kind of like I forget who else I'd said, and I was like, "It's weird. It's very weird. I'm off put by this actor mostly just because he just makes me think of other actors." But he's a good character. I really like that character. But
I think when I was watching it, I was like, why does he look like evil John Mulaney?
that's what it was. That was the other one. We were like, because he walked in, and Karen's like, "I thought he was John Mulaney for a hot second." So yeah, he's a combination of Sebastian Stan and John Mulaney, which makes him look slightly evil, which is
Yeah.
weird.
I was like, why does he look like John Mulaney if he had true evil in his heart?
But I like him as a character. I think there's definitely some interesting dynamics going on between these doctors,
Mhm.
and it's definitely going to add to the story, much like ER did. And why I loved ER so much was that it wasn't soap opera y drama like Grey's Anatomy and Chicago Med are. It's very realistic medical drama. And I'm like, I like that better.
But there's also some, you already mentioned one, but like some really fun actors and performances here. You already mentioned Noah Weil, ER royalty,
Love him so much.
but also Isa Briones, who is on Picard and Goosebumps.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, what is she doing here? She is a child. Why is she here?
Well, it's she acts her character seems like a child.
Yeah,
Like,
she's such an asshole. And also Taylor Dearden,
yep.
who was on Sweet Vicious. Incidentally, Bryan Cranston's daughter.
Mhm.
And it took me so long to place her. It was driving me crazy. I was like,
Wait,
who?
she is?
Yeah, yeah, no, she's Bryan Cranston's daughter.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
I
Yeah.
couldn't place her with the glasses and because she had like purple hair on Sweet Vicious,
Mhm.
and it was driving me crazy. I was like, I can't pair who this is, as like Ophelia from Sweet Vicious.
Yeah, her character's very interesting, and I'm curious to learn more because I'm like, okay, I can't tell if she's borderline crazy or she just has a lot of anxiety. Like I can't decide yet.
I think she's just very anxious. It's her first day.
Yes. The other character that I really, really enjoy is the one that I did mention briefly when I talked about like the gruesome things that they were showing. Whitaker, the young med student, he's such a hoot. Like he's so funny and he looks like a child and I'm like, "What are you doing in an ED? You do not look old enough to be here. What are you doing?" And there's something really heartbreaking that happens. I can't remember if it happened in the first episode or the second episode, but he misses a bed. Like he's supposed to check in on a patient and it takes him 30 minutes to come back over to the guy and check in on him, and he finds him and he's dead, and like it goes through a series of Noah Wiles' character says to him, "Okay, do epi, do all this stuff." Like, that whole thing that medical dramas are like, teach the students how to try their best to do everything they can, even though the attendings know this guy is dead.
Right.
He's not coming back. And this kid, he just keeps trying and keeps trying. And it's so heartbreaking to see him realize, oh, nothing I'm doing is going to save this guy. And like the actor does such a good job of managing that the emotion involved with all of that.
I also really enjoyed, this is more on a personal level, the inclusion of the social worker in the first
Mhm.
episode, because my mom is a clinical social worker, who's
Yeah.
sometimes worked in hospital settings. And it's like, I think that is especially in medical hospital dramas, is a character that like often is never shown.
Yeah. And she speaking of the social worker, so they brought her in because of the little boy that ingested THC gummies, and Karen and I were like, "We can't watch this. We literally just lived this 6 months ago." Not even 6 months ago with Alice. Like she got into some gummies and we ended up at the ER, and like, it was just I was like, because the minute that little boy came in and the parents were saying, well, normally he runs around and then he goes to sleep and like da, 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 but he's been very lethargic. And Karen looked at me and she goes, "I swear to God, if they do THC gummies, I'm out." She goes, "It's too real." And that's ended up being what it was. And I was like, crazy.
Mhm.
Like, but it's a very real story because it's something that has gone up in frequency with the legalization of marijuana in a lot of states. And gummies are just more available. And so children get into them. And I found that very interesting that they chose to do a story like that because I wouldn't have thought to do that for a TV show. You know what I mean?
Guys, you gotta talk to kids about your gummies. Gotta talk to
Do
kids.
not let your children think that they're candy because they are not.
Gotta be smart about this.
Alice now calls them magic gummies. She's just
Mm,
like, I had the magic in me. And I'm like, yes, you did have magic in you.
did.
She goes, I will not eat magic gummies ever again. And we go, good. But yeah, no, it's a great show. I'm very excited for it to continue. I'm glad to have Noah back as a doctor.
Yeah, and it's also going to be the rare streaming show that has more than 10 episodes.
Yeah,
It has a 15 episode count, so that's very exciting.
that's that's good because typically we get at most 13.
For Max, that's a full it's a full fall TV schedule.
This week was definitely a week for ER alums because there was also the premiere of another show that stars Eric LaSalle. And I'm like, excuse me, is this the ER comeback this year? Is that what's happening? Like, is everyone coming back? What's next? George Clooney's coming back to television? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yep, yep.
But no, like, and Moira Tierney is on Law and Order now. And it's just like, it's the ER people. They're coming back.
Mhm. Speaking of hospital characters that I'm very familiar with, that takes us into Animal Control, which is back for its
Yes.
third season.
I need to figure out a way to watch this show.
I mean, it's on Hulu.
Is all the seasons? Because the last time I looked, they had only had season 2.
I mean, Matt, I need to be so serious with you right now. All you need is the second season. You really don't even need the second season.
All right, I'll give it I'll look and see if season 2, because I don't know if it's doing a thing where it only keeps the current season up
Uh,
on Hulu,
maybe
because some shows do that, and I don't know if that's the case with
that
this
might
one or not.
be. I'm not sure. But anyway, Animal Control is back, and I'm just
Everything
kind
I
of
hear about this show, I'm like, there's no way this is real.
just fucking giddy about it. Yeah, season 3, episode 1: Giraffes, Gorillas, and Penguins. First, I'm gonna touch on the segue, which is Sarah Chalk guest stars in this episode, reprising her character from last season as Joel McHale's kind of sort of girlfriend in the second season,
Okay.
who bolted without warning, and it's back as his actual girlfriend, and he thinks that she is too committed in their relationship, so he wants to break up with her. And I just got to tell you, if you're dating Sarah Chalk, I just take the hit. I don't know what to tell you. just
Just date her.
just date
Doesn't
her.
matter.
Whatever she wants to do, just let her. It's Sarah Chalk. I don't. Come on. But the big meat of this episode and why I'm talking about it today with you all is this episode features a zoo jailbreak where a number of animals escape from the zoo. And as the episode title indicates, they go after a penguin and a giraffe, which are fairly normal looking, almost certainly CG, because this
That
show.
would be a lot of money to get an animal and an animal like control person to help you.
Exactly. This show almost certainly does not have giraffe money.
Does not have giraffe money.
Doesn't have giraffe money. I would be shocked if there was a real giraffe used in this episode. But you have two CG animals. Cool. Cool. Then they go after a gorilla. And the gorilla is just straight up a man in a gorilla costume. There's no.
Are they trying to pass it off as being a real
It's a
gorilla?
real gorilla. In the context of the show, it's a real gorilla,
Oh, okay.
but it is a
That
man.
makes it even funnier. Okay. I thought when you were telling me earlier that it was come to find out that it's not a gorilla, it's a man in a gorilla suit. Like that's what I
No, 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 no.
understood. I misunderstood you.
It's a. The show wants us to believe it is a real gorilla, but it is fully a man in a gorilla suit. And it's just they are
I love
they
it.
are treating it entirely straight, shooting this man in a gorilla suit with a tranquilizer gun, and it's just really funny. The show is so
Nice.
absurd. I love it so much. Yeah, it's really funny. There's also a really funny scene of Larry Joe Campbell, who plays like one of the like very secondary like animal control people,
Mhm.
like very special guest star animal control person, who is hunting a flamingo in a yard of plastic flamingos.
That just sounds comical.
It's very funny. The visual comedy of that is very good. Yeah, I love the show so much. Last season we had drunk raccoons in a bowling alley. Let's carry on to our next show, which is High Potential, which we're checking back in on. So Matt, how are we feeling about High Potential?
Really still like it. I like the dynamic between the characters and it's always a fun time. Like she's always doing something wacky and weird
Mhm.
that's going to end up making me laugh. And sometimes when she like figures some things out, I'm like, "Whoa, I don't know how you think of that so fast." Like her brain, it's just amazing. But yeah, I'm still liking it. I am I loving it? I don't know yet. I'm enjoying it though, so there's that.
Yeah, I think like the cases are fun enough. Like a lot of the dynamics are really good. I think Caitlin Olsen and Judy Reyes are still like two of the standouts of it. I think they got to figure out what to do with Daphne and Oz,
Yep.
because just they have nothing for them. I'm hoping
Yeah.
that they'll figure that out pretty quick. They are pretty much glorified extras at this point. Like they are not characters whatsoever.
They don't really even show up every episode. And it's like, but they work there.
They work there, yeah. Integral parts
Why
of
aren't
the
they
team.
involved?
Right. Why aren't you using Javicia Leslie? Like, why? What are you doing?
Yeah. And it's running into a similar issue that I have with the Law and Order shows is that I feel like especially like the Law and Order proper because it does split down the center. Okay, the first half is the detectives investigating and the second half is law and the courtroom and stuff and like Law and Order runs into this problem a lot where they have too many characters and not enough time for those sets of characters. And I think this show does the same thing where it's like they've introduced all these different characters, but they don't have enough time to give them each the due they deserve. And so the ones that should be towards the front get forgotten a lot. And that's not helpful to the story.
I'm not even sure it's, you know, they don't have time. I don't think they have interests. It's a bigger problem.
Well, I mean by time, I mean like the writers are like, well, we only get X number of minutes in an episode. We don't really care as much about these characters,
Right.
so we're gonna forget about them this week.
Well, and you even have like the same problem with like the kids of like, the kids are just
Hmm.
off with their dad somewhere. We just didn't want to deal with them this week. I do think the show has like the same thing that Lucifer had. A lot of like the interpersonal character stuff is a lot more interesting than like whatever's going on with like the actual case though. Where like that was always the big thing with Lucifer. Like the case is kind of but like everything happening between like here of like Karadec and Morgan is like really good. Like I think they've kind of zeroed in on that dynamic really well.
Yeah.
At least a lot better than at the beginning of the season.
I think one of the other things that I'm kind of like wishing would move a little bit faster is the side story of her figuring out what happened to her daughter's father.
Oh right,
Um
yes,
and I'm like, in this latest episode, like she's like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I've found out some information for you on the DL." And it's like we're only just now getting to this part where we're like finding stuff. I'm like, this is going way too slow.
I also super don't care about Tom
Nope, me neither.
or like Janet or date. Yeah, I just don't care about that man whatsoever. Like unless he ties into like what's going on with his with her daughter's dad.
That's what I started to think, that like maybe he has something to do with that, which
Yeah,
would be an interesting twist, but who knows if the show's going to do it.
yeah, and unless it's that, and even if it's that, it's not. I don't think that'll be too much of a saving grace.
Mhm.
But otherwise, like Tom is just nothing. Like I don't care about
Yeah.
that man whatsoever.
Again, we're adding more characters but not knowing what to do with them.
Yeah, and I think this week's case is even more so than I think some of their other cases is incredibly easy to see where it's going to go.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my god, it was so easy to figure out.
Yeah,
Like I was like, were they even necessary? We didn't even need the detectives.
yeah, no. Like as soon as that brother was introduced, I was like, oh, he definitely 100% did this.
It's like, yep, he's the one. That's it. That's the killer. I also just feel though watched so many police procedurals at this point in my life that gotten pretty good at determining when a character gets introduced if they're the one that's going to have either something to do with the murder or the one that committed the murder itself.
Well, and then like climaxing that with I'm gonna jump is like I
Yes.
it's that Futurama joke of like do a backflip. I don't care. You're like you're a rich country club bro. Like
Yeah, like are we supposed to like be like, "No, please don't.
you have so much
Oh,
left
please
to
don't
offer.
jump."
You have nothing. I don't want to be rude and be like you have nothing to offer, but you have nothing to offer.
He thinks his money is his personality trait, and it's like, "Sir, no one cares about that."
Who cares? It's funny you mentioned like being able to catch like a lot of these twists that come. 'Cause
Mhm.
we had a D&D session last night where last week and NBC was bitten by a vampire in their house, and no one was like, "Oh, okay," and, like everyone just accepted that on the face of it. And even I was like, oh, "Yeah, I'm good." And then last night they laid out the rules for like what a vampire can and cannot do, and it was like a vampire needs invitation to come into your house, and I was like, "God damn it, you stupid motherfucker, you stupid bitch."
Yep.
It was this moment of like piecing something together in real time, but also like, how many fucking. I really said this also. I was like, do you know how many fucking vampire shows I've watched to not be able to get to have gotten that and need that spelled out for me, you stupid motherfucker? Which is all to say, sometimes you don't get it.
Yep.
Sometimes not catching it makes sense. Well, let's move on to our next show of the week. Brilliant Minds, which just wrapped up its first season. I've seen conflicting things because we talked about this at Hero Remote as the mid-season finale, and everywhere else, and a lot of other places say this is the proper end of the first season. But yeah, I've been keeping up with Brilliant Minds kind of quietly throughout the season, just seeing where it goes and how I feel about it past the first episode we talked about, and I don't mind it too much. I think a lot of
Yeah.
the problems that I had with it, particularly like in the how interesting cases are, or like the performance that Zachary Quinto is giving, or a lot of the characterizations aren't necessarily not there, but bother me a lot less. Pretty much by the time we were at like the halfway mark of this season, I think there are some really good episodes in the season. Particularly, there is an episode, and I forget which episode this was specifically, but there's an episode where for the first half of the season they have been trying to put a software into a John Doe who's been catatonic, ending up with a successful where the patient can one of those like transmit their thoughts via some technology that allows them to speak, and it all kind of ending up in a I don't want to live like this, and I want to be like kind of mercifully taken off a ventilator.
Yep.
And it's just watching all of these doctors plus this man's partner kind of like come to terms with this, and like just letting this man like drift off into death. And it's a really powerful episode and really got to me in a way that like a lot of episodes don't get to me. So I think it was noteworthy in that respect to me. Also, the blossoming relationship between Wolf and Josh is really good.
Hmm.
I think it could have slow burned a little more, but it's still pretty
Yeah.
good.
Well, I mean, I watched the finale and I was just like, okay, it's clear that there's something because I've only watched the premiere and the finale, so I didn't watch anything in between. I will be going back and watching. I just life got away from me and I kept forgetting about the show until you put it on our list again. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch the finale because there's too many episodes to watch in the week if I
Right.
try to watch all of them. But I get to see in that finale that, like, there's a bit of tension between the two of them. It's clear that Josh wants more and Wolf's just not ready to give it with good reason. Like,
Right.
the man's father he thought was dead comes back at the most inconvenient time.
Right. And that's maybe the weirdest subplot of the season, because the thing of like Wolf's father just like walked off into the forest, and like that's the story, and I was like, that no. I don't think so.
You were like, no.
No.
But I appreciate that Mandy Patinkin plays him. Like,
And that's the weird thing. So in the penultimate episode, Mandy Patinkin shows up for like two scenes, and you're like, that's so weird to just have Mandy Patinkin here as like random apartment complex neighbor,
hmm
and just like only use him for those two scenes. That's so what a waste of Mandy Patinkin. And then he shows up again at the end of the episode. And you're like, oh, okay, got it.
it's his dad.
Dead.
I continue to be intrigued by the young man doctor who works under Wolf, which, again, having not seen more than the first and the last episode, he has a kid, and I guess is that his ex? Are they not together? I don't really know if they're together or not, but
Yeah, it's X.
I continue to be intrigued by him because I've read reviews and recaps and like talking about things that, his character have been through. And I'm curious to see what they have planned for that character because it seems like they're trying to build up to something with his family because in the finale, he makes this admission to his son that he has a problem with his brain. And it seems like the ex is a little surprised by this. So it's like, okay, where are we going with this? Why is this in the final moments of the finale?
Yeah, and yeah, his stuff with his son is like a very weird part of the season too. It's just randomly dropped as like, oh, I have a son. Like, wait, what? Yeah, so it's a very awkward subplot, I think. Yeah, and you also see a little of this in the last episode, but like the love triangle between him and two of the other interns is just not great.
Yeah, I did enjoy the scene at the bar with Wolf and that guy and then the other one. And he's like, well, I know that you like, I forget what her name is. And I also know that you like her too. And it's like, oh, is there a love triangle between this girl and these two guys? But also just Wolf being drunk is fun. Like
It's very fun.
he's like, you want to be a good dad? Don't lie to your kid. And we're like, oh, Wolf, you are going through it. I mean, to be fair, it is a lie that was upheld for like 20 something years or like 20 years or something like that. And so, like,
But it was 30
I would be
years.
pissed too. What do you mean you didn't tell me my dad had a mental breakdown and, went to a facility? Instead, you said, oh, he just died.
And we said this earlier, but like the show is so terrified of making Wolf into an asshole when he really should be.
And it's disappointing because Zachary Quinto is one of those actors that I can't make up my mind if he's so good at playing an asshole because he's good at playing an asshole or because he is an asshole and he's just really good at being himself. And I wish they would let him be the asshole in the show.
Yeah, they kind of need him to be like the nice, not even nice, like the really kind doctor. It's just you can do more. You can have him be an asshole.
He can be layered. He can have compassion for the people he is treating and also be a garbage human outside of being a doctor
Right.
that uses his condition as a crutch. Like you are allowed to do that. And I know they're probably scared because they're like that's too similar to House, but like so what?
I mean, if you're gonna do House, do House.
Right, exactly.
I also really like the romance between Dana and Katie,
Mhm.
the the paramedic who was in a previous episode this season. And I really liked her coming back in this episode and the previous. Although I'm pretty sure it's still still you might not technically be her doctor anymore. It's still against the rules to make out with her in a hospital.
Yeah, it's still a little iffy on the lines there.
I think you're
Um
definitely not allowed to do any of that with her while she's still inside the hospital.
right, because she's still your patient until you completely close that file, which you can't do until she leaves.
She has to actually leave. If you want to go out to a bar with her, I think you're definitely allowed to do that after that.
Don't you know, Drew? It's television, therefore it doesn't matter.
I mean, I get it.
But I also love the shout out to Grey's Anatomy in that episode where she
Oh yeah,
goes, "Listen, I've watched enough Grey's Anatomy. I'm not doing that." And then she does that. So, girl,
but also it's Michelle Prada, so you know, I get it. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what a second season of this looks like with more Manny Patinkin.
I hope it gets another season, but
Yeah, I don't think it's actually been renewed for a second season.
it has not. I just looked.
Let's move on to our next show, which is Sex Lives of College Girls, which I'm just checking in on the first half of this season, and then I'm going to talk about the last half when the season wraps up in a couple weeks. I was curious how the show functions post Renee Rapp, and I think it's done a pretty good job. I was kind of worried that like the main trio wouldn't be able to like what you would feel that vacuum with Leighton not there, but I think the other three like really operate well, and I think it has allowed Bella to like really come into this come into the spotlight a little bit more and be like a much better character in this third season,
Mhm.
and so like I really enjoy her in these episodes as like a more stable and mature but still a nightmare messy human being. like her scenes with Taylor, who's like her kind of charge slash friend slash, if you listen to people online, girl that something might happen with sometime eventually. I think it's fun, and I think that's a really good dynamic. And then these episodes have brought in a fourth girl to kind of round it out, and
Mhm.
I think she's fine. She is aggressively. It's a very weird thing because you had a Leighton who is so much of like the Regina George type, but like emphasized on the lesbian qualities of that character.
Mhm.
And now you've brought in a girl who is just so epitomously a straight white Christian girl, and just like going through a lot of like the tropes of like that kind of character, the girl who like moves for her boyfriend and has a promise ring, and thinks that she is 100% the shit. Like, it is a character archetype who's very familiar to me as someone who grew up in Christian circles. Feels 100% like the kind of girl that would make a prayer request just as an excuse to shit talk other people. Like a very specific kind of person, and she's fine. Coming off
Mhm.
of Leighton is just a little less so, but I think she's very fun. I think she has a nice dynamic with the other girls, and I'm particularly interested in how the rest of the season's going to shape up. I know that Ruby Cruz is in some of the episodes towards the back half of the season, so I'm really interested in that. But yeah, I am still very much enjoying this, and it's very fun. Bella hooks up with the man with one of the guys who's the mascot, and that's just a very funny joke and runner. So yeah, this is I think it's still very enjoyable, even without Renee Rapp. I worried that the show would kind of crater without her. But more on that later. Let's move on to Abbott Elementary, season 4, episode 9, entitled Volunteers. And this is the crossover between Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And on paper, that is a ridiculous notion. And in practice, it is still a
It's still a
ridiculous notion,
ridiculous notion.
but it works.
Here's the thing, I know barely anything about It's Always Sunny because I've never really watched it, but I recognize these characters because of the cultural impact this show has had on the world. And so it was very fun for me to look at this from the standpoint of I know nothing about these characters outside of general social media discourse, and I'm enjoying myself.
Right. For me, because I watched a little bit of It's Always Sunny, towards the beginning of its run. So I'm pulling off like 15-year-old files in my brain that like a long time ago I said, I don't need this. And going like, what's that character say? That character. What happened there? I know that. Okay. So I'm like, Charlie, D, Dennis, Mac, got it. Okay.
I appreciate that they didn't try to make all of those characters be interacting with every single one of the Abbott Elementary. They each had their group of Abbott Elementary characters they were interacting with. I loved it. I think it worked best that way. You know, we've got Mac annoying the crap out of Ava and then eventually helping her get some slick things happening,
Hmm.
Mac is good at doing. And then you've got D trying to get between Janine and Gregory. And then she's just like, yeah, Mr. Eddie's gay. I feel bad for Janine. And it's like, no, he's not. He just doesn't like you.
I forgot. I forgot just how good Caitlin Olsen is as D.
Uh huh.
God, just an absolute maniac.
Imagine this. I watched this episode and then I watched High Potential. Like, it was just,
I really expected Caitlin Olsen to just disappear at some point in this episode because of high potential, and she just doesn't. Instead, Dennis disappears, which I think is really funny.
yeah, Dennis is just like, oh, I'm not on camera.
Nothing like
Bye. And
that.
it's
No.
just like, okay. And the dad being I forget Dan DeVito's character's name, but I know he's the dad.
Oh,
Um
Frank. Yeah.
Frank, him and the janitor having beef is the funniest freaking thing I never thought I would get.
This episode shouldn't work,
No.
and it works amazingly. It's just in execution, it's such an amazing blend. You're kind of watering down It's Always Sunny, but not that much.
Hmm.
They're still who they are for like
Yeah.
to a large degree.
Especially because, again, I only really extensively know about Mac because I see him more on social media, I feel, than some of the other characters. And so, like, him doing these things for Ava to try and get on her good side so that she'll sign their paperwork and let them not have to do the whole week is hilarious and very in line with who Mac is. Mac is going to try and take the easy way out any chance he gets. And in the end end up doing more work because he's working so hard to try and take the easy way out. And it's like, "Sir, you could have just done it the normal way and it would have been less work."
Well, and the episode being like, yeah, they're all here because of community service
Community
because they
service.
committed a crime. It's like, yep, that's it. That's the reason.
But also, it begs to question why they got approved to do their community service at a school.
What is the vetting process for volunteer work? But yeah, it's yeah, it's really good. And like Charlie not knowing how to read, Barbara and Melissa trying to teach him is just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really outstanding. Yeah, really funny. I don't know that I will watch the It's Always Sunny version of this episode, but like the It's Always Sunny like part 2 of this, but
Oh, is there going to be an It's Always Sunny
yeah.
part 2?
Well, there's yeah,
Oh.
what I've heard is there's supposed to be an episode that's like, here's what Dennis was up to,
Oh. That's funny.
which I probably will not watch. But let's move on to Skeleton Crew, season 1, episode 7. We're gonna be in so much trouble.
Why? Oh, I totally didn't realize that was the name of the episode. I was like, wait, why are we going to be in trouble? For reference, guys, my brain is on I'm 2 seconds away from sleep mode. So thought process is moving a little slow.
This podcast is the only thing between us and sleep.
Oh man. Anyways, carry on.
Uh, the episode where we just get to see Jude Law going full villain,
I loved it.
equipped with a maniacal laugh.
I thoroughly enjoyed him going full villain. Like, not gonna lie.
Really,
I was not surprised by this at all. We knew it was coming because he's been manipulating situations since he was introduced.
yeah,
We knew what he was really after. But yeah, I'm just like, Jude Law, no notes. Good job.
exactly. And look, the thing that I want more than anything is for John to try to follow through on a lot of the threats and just be the biggest fucking loser
Oh, I'm here for it.
that's
I
ever existed. Just trying to,
I feel like that's what's gonna end up happening.
yeah, just try to use a lightsaber on these people, and it's just so bad at it.
Not only that, I don't think we've seen the end of the ingenuity of these children. Like we have
No,
they are very upset with this man. You know, they trusted him and he is destroying that trust completely. So you know that they're going to have something up their sleeves.
yeah, I just want this man to be fully foisted up on his own petards. Just
I want him to turn into a Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Like I want him to think that he's this great villain and really he's just a comedic stupid loser.
he's
Like
just a doofus. I want it to have like built up this whole season of like, oh, he has force powers, and he must have like had
mhm.
training of some kind, and it's just he had like a little bit of force powers that he never received any training for, and he's just a loser.
Yep.
And he just
Or
all
like
he's able
he got
yeah all he's able to do is just do like fun party tricks.
like or either that or it's the situation of he did have force training but then he got kicked out after like the first day
Oh
and they're like get the fuck out of here. Go away.
God, that would just be so good.
That's my head canon is that he got kicked out. No, no. That's not what we're here for. Go away.
But no, I really love the children reclaiming the ship and just trying to enact like child rules, take backsies, and 33 just being like, that's, you know what, that's just gonna have to do. It's,
Yeah.
it's really funny. Like, it's really building upon like the conceit of like, these are kids. This is a child show trying to use a lot of like children's logic to solve problems.
I do love the moment in I want to say it was like probably the second half of the episode where she turns around and she goes, my mom lied. We are in so much trouble. And it's like, no, because children do know that. Like they know that these parents are saying, "Oh, we're scared. We just want to make sure you're okay. You're not in trouble." But they know the minute their parents realize they're fine, they are in trouble.
Yeah. But also, I continue to have huge questions of how Atten works.
Yeah.
Because you all have an emissary of the Republic, not the new Republic, just the Republic,
Mhm.
implying that this is a very old. They are like remnants of the old Republic. They expect emissaries. The thing that gets to me is their mint has just been kept going
Mhm.
for hundreds of years and no one's picked it up. So there's
Yep.
just this immeasurable amount of Republic gold just continuously being put out and put somewhere. I don't think the episode's really concerned with that.
The show's really not concerned with any of that. Like it's very much that's something off to the side. Don't worry about it. Just trust us.
Pay no
And
attention
it's
to
like,
the
no,
man
but I
behind
need
the
to
mirror.
understand this. Right, exactly. But I'm like, but no, actually, I need to understand this. Like the whole discovery that the planet's been hidden behind this like illusion of a planet that has stormy, you know, clouds and things like that. It's like, oh, I mean, that's genius, but also like, how? How are you doing this?
Yeah, how are you maintaining this barrier? How's no one leaving? How are you dealing with population control? What's the deal here? It's not a big planet, but you keep on having children. So what are you doing about that? Did no one care about KB's parents being lesbians? Like, what's the deal? Like, I need answers to these questions.
Yep,
If there's population control, did they care about KB's parents? I don't know. But again, it's very pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
absolutely.
So who cares? I guess because we have one more episode.
It'll be interesting to see how they wrap things up.
Let's move on to our next show, which is Creature Commandos, season 1, episode 7, a very funny monster, and this is the season finale. So I guess this only had 7 episodes, and I think it's maintained its quality for the most part. But the end of this is very much like cool. A lot of people died or were hurt or maimed for nothing, I guess. Like it is one of those endings where it's like, cool. What was, what was this about? Why did we go through this? Um, you know, why did we see the flashback of a woman just so that she would die? There's a certain level of. I mean, the show's always been like extremely gruesome and violent, but there's a certain level of cruelty to it and kind of unresolved character dynamics. Where
Mhm.
it's like, cool, we still have like we introduced Frankenstein, did nothing with that really, just killed him, I guess. He was never brought up again, so I guess he's dead. And we're just cool, not gonna follow through on the incelly nature of Frankenstein. Not gonna make any kind of commentary on that, and I feel like that's kind of Creature Commandos as a whole. Of like, cool, don't know what we're saying here about any of this. What's the idea? What are we doing? But I think the strong parts of this are still like Indira Varma as the Bride of Frankenstein, who's just very good and is like pretty like has taken the mantle from Frank Grillo as like the de facto lead of the show, which doesn't entirely make sense because they make her like the lead of the team, and that kind of feels like letting the inmates be in charge of the asylum, you know? But sure, okay. Cognitive dissonance, I can deal. I guess I want to see what they do with the second season. I don't know. This first season feels very contained in a way that was like, cool. Don't know what we do with the second season. We've lost a lot of characters that I, felt were pretty fun and had a good dynamic, and now we're just going back down to zero for lack of a better term. So that's Creature Command. Let's move on to our last show of the week. Silo Season 2, Episode 9, entitled The Safeguard.
Just when I thought this show couldn't get more bananas.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Secret society within Solo Silo doesn't work. I think it's maybe the first big thing the show has done this season
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
Because, yeah. I mean, I get that silos are big. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of.
There's a question of resources, considering Solo has talked about with Juliet about the limited resources he has due to the flooding.
Right.
Therefore, the children even deeper down into the silo would have the same issue, if not more so. And so I'm like, how are you surviving
Yeah.
with a baby?
Yeah, with the baby. Also, I just want because the show the episode kind of zips right on
Glosses
by
over.
this. Is that an incest baby?
Yeah, it seems as though the brother and the boy and the girl are brother and sister,
Yeah, because
and the baby is theirs.
she said our parents.
Yep.
So
Which, again, with the silo society, there's probably at some point was some incestuous things going on. However,
but not straight up
I'm
incest.
sorry, what?
Not
I'm
straight up
sorry, what?
incest. That's a bridge too far. You've gone a bridge too far. That's very I don't remember what the movie was. I don't know if you've ever seen it. The movie of the siblings crash land on an island and then they fuck and have a baby together. It's very much that.
Hmm. Oh, are you talking about Blue Lagoon?
Yes. I think that's it.
Yep,
Um, very much
yep.
that. We didn't need that recreated for Silo. Very
Like,
uncomfortable with
I
that.
get it in theory, like I get where you were trying to go with this, but it was unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think all of that's kind of unnecessary. You just needed to.
I know they added those kids in just to have a catalyst of drama between Juliet and Solo, and like getting out of that silo, but it wasn't needed.
No.
There's enough drama going on with her trying to find another suit and her trying to find information. Like, there's enough going on with that because Solo is trying to stop her at every turn.
Right.
So we've got enough going on between the two of them. We don't need more little hands in the fire.
I think that the show had made it seem like Juliet knew who Solo was, right?
Hmm.
Like it made it seem like she knew that Solo was a child when he started.
Right, because when she'd found that one room, she realized that the names that he was saying were other children, and so she was like, "Wait a minute. These pictures look old. He was probably in one of these photos as a child."
Yeah.
Because like it made it very clear that she understood that he had been a child when this started. But now here we are, it seems like we've backtracked and now she's like, "Oh, now I know his name." And it's like, "But I thought you already figured out all
I
that
think you
information."
figured this out already. Like I thought that was the point of the scene.
That's what it seemed like, but I guess maybe we're wrong.
I guess I can forgive all of that if it just gets Juliet out of that silo back to the regular silo.
Is she's an 18, right? And her original one is 17?
I think that's right, or something like that.
I think that's correct. I don't think it's reversed. I think it's she was in 17 and now she's in 18.
Yeah,
Speaking of 17, Lucas Kyle has found a tunnel.
yeah, with an AI, I guess.
And from the looks of it, it looks like it's a tunnel system that connects the different silos. That's what it seems like to me, anyway. Like, it's so far down. Like, that's the only logical thing that I would think that tunnel would lead to is another silo.
Yes, and now we're at the fun part of like Now Lucas knows something that the mayor doesn't.
That the mayor doesn't, and he is clearly not going to tell. This AI voice tells him, "You're only the fourth person that has been privy to this information.
Well,
Here are the other three that have."
the third person,
And it's,
because
or the third person, right? The third person,
yeah,
that's what it
because
is. And
George,
here are the other people that have.
yeah, because George was wasn't allowed to have this. But imagine the kicking teeth of being George and finding all the way down there, and you just find like a dark tunnel. That guy just kept catching L's. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like where that takes Lucas now.
Yep.
Both like what information he's been given and what he plans to do with that information. Because if he has this, because the thing is now that if he's being given the same information that like Quinn had, that like it would seem like that puts him in a position um where like his allegiances shift and kind of don't shift, where now maybe he is, depending on what kind of information he gets, like would be in favor of like doing what Quinn did and just like resetting the silo. So I think that's really interesting.
It is. And I find it also interesting that now that more people in the silo have been given access to that page from the book, and they're starting to think that, well, what if this is what's really out there? It's going to be more of an urgency for them to revolt and try to get out of the silo.
And that's really interesting seeing thinking of like the ways that like we've cut a lot of the characters have kind of like double faked themselves,
Mhm.
because we know that like the monitors like in the cafeterias show the world as the world actually is,
Right.
a barren place, and they think that the matter that all of that is a lie. So like we've all kind of like you know twisted ourselves into knots to being like, no, 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 I know what's up. But it's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
all very like Occam's razor. Like the simplest answer is the correct answer. It is the problem. It is the problem when like you start to think that like conspiracies exist. Then you think that anything can be a conspiracy.
Yes.
You're like, no, something probably just is what it seems like it is. You could either think that something's a rainstorm or that someone caused the rainstorm. But it's way more.
Absolutely. And it and it kind of like connects very well with who we are as a society now, is that so many people don't trust the information they're being given, so they're like, "Oh, well, it's a conspiracy." And it's like, "No, not everything is a conspiracy. You need to trust what you're being told."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Listen. Most people think that groups are like this massive cabal of evil people. Most groups could not successfully plan a potluck. Like I know the idea. Like I know a lot of people have the idea of like the evil Democrats running the world. Democrats could not run a potluck if they really tried.
no. I I very much, a few weeks ago when we were on hiatus, I watched a documentary about conspiracy thoughts related to 9/11, and I'm like, "People actually believe these conspiracies? I'm sorry, what?" I'm sorry, what? And like this documentary's point was to debunk these conspiracies, and it does a really good job of debunking them. But I just couldn't get past the idea that there were more than one conspiracy about 9/11.
Mhm.
I was like, wait a minute, I'm sorry. How are there like five or six conspiracies going on here?
But also like the inverse of that. I remember someone a few years ago told me that they don't believe in ghosts because they can't believe in
Hmm.
ghosts, because if ghosts exist, then any number of stranger things could exist. You know?
Okay, that's fair.
So if you open yourself up to the possibility of like this thing is true, then you also have to accept that
Hmm.
like a bunch of other things could be true. And I think that's kind of like where a lot of the people in Silo are at, of like, well, this is Juliet left and she could be fine. So if that's
Hmm.
true, what else is true?
Which we know that she is fine.
Yeah, it's always an interesting place of like explicitly having more information than the characters have.
Yep.
But yeah, it definitely seems like we are on the verge of a civil war.
It's going to be very interesting to see how they wrap up this season since we have one episode left.
Yeah, and especially since we're now in like season 2 of a 4 season plan. So that is it for this week. Next week we're going to be talking about the awaited returns, some longer than others, of Harley Quinn and Severance. So keep an eye out for that. Until then, Mads, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram at DorothyNYC89, and then on Tumblr at MadsWorld15.
And you can find me on Blue Sky and pretty much everywhere else at Drew Koenig. And I am back at Hidden Remote, and I'll be recapping and reviewing Doc every week, plus Bob's Burgers whenever that comes back, plus a lot of other stuff, I'm sure. You can follow the podcast at Not Another TV Podcast on whatever social media platform you are currently using. And you can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe. You can also find our full directory on our Libsyn feed at libsyn.com/Not Another TV Podcast. You can email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions you may have about the show. Shoot any goat recommendations or show ideas that you have. Until next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean. It is none of your business. There could be a shark out there chasing a seal. You don't know. Okay? Goodbye.